This is Laura Pinto from the College of Education at Niagara University, here to tell you about an innovative instructional technique called Novel in an Hour. First, I'm going to tell you a little bit about how the technique works, but I invite you to download the PDF that I created, which contains additional information, including the technique's evidence base. Then I'm going to walk you through how I use this in my own classroom. The use of literature in undergraduate social science courses is actually nothing new. In fact, research suggests it's actually an effective technique to help undergraduate students grasp abstract concepts and theoretical knowledge. Some novels that are popular in undergraduate courses include Primary Colors in Political Science, Angry Black White Boy and the Elegance of the Hedgehog in Sociology, The Golden Mean in Philosophy and History, and various works by Nikolai Gogol for public administration. Novel in an Hour is a cooperative jigsaw reading strategy. Cooperative means that students work in small groups towards a specific goal, and jigsaw means that each group is responsible for a different aspect of knowledge about a topic, which they can then share with the rest of the class. Novel in an Hour functions in 3 phases. First, small groups are assigned a chapter each, which they read and summarize. Second, the small groups come together and they reconstruct the novel. Finally, the large group reflects on how the novel relates to core course themes and issues. You can use this strategy as a one-time novel integration, or it can be used to introduce a novel which will then be read by individuals over a longer period of time. It can also be used as something that's a class activity with no assessment, or it can have an evaluation component based on students' performance in class, or a reflection that you can ask them to submit later on. There are a few things that you'll need if you want to use a Novel in an Hour in your own classroom. First off, you'll need chart paper so that your students can record their summaries. You'll need markers for them to record it, tape, and a class set of books. Ideally, you should have 1 book per student, but you can actually get away with 1 book per group. There's a bit of preparation you'll need to do as well. In advance, decide how many groups you're going to create and how you'll group your students. Generally, you can have 1 group per chapter, but depending on the nature of the book, you may need to break it up in different ways. You should have chapter summaries prepared in advance for yourself, and possibly a character list. This allows you to assess the students' work against what you believe to be the key points from each chapter. Finally, you should have some questions ready ahead of time so that you can make sure the reflection discussion is constructive. So what does this look like? I'm going to share how I use it in my class. I don't assess my students other than watching how they understand course concepts and how they make sense of them in relation to the novel. I use Novel in an Hour in my Foundations and Legal Principles of Education course. This is a compulsory course for all students in the teacher preparation program at the Ontario campus. The course itself touches on big concepts, including aims of education and education policy. I like to situate this activity about midway through so that my students have a bit of a theoretical knowledge to begin with, and this allows them to apply it based on the events in the novel. The novel that I use is called the Saber Curriculum. It's a satirical work, and it was originally published in 1939 under a pseudonym, J. Abner Pettawell. A few years later, after the novel gained popularity, the author revealed his identity. It was Harold Benjamin, the Dean of a College of Education. The book is a timeless allegory of major education issues that's structured as a conversation billed as Professor Pettawell's last lecture in Tijuana, and it details his research on Paleolithic education. I don't tell my students in advance about the history and context of this book. I save that for the reflection discussion. The way it works in my class is students are grouped into 8 groups. I number them off. I give each student a number, and all the number 1s go in one place, the number 2s in another place, and so forth. When breakout rooms are available, I allow students to use them. The group receives chart paper and markers, and they know in advance that they have 20 minutes to do their summaries. Students choose to do their work in different ways. I've seen groups that assign one person to read the chapter aloud while the others listen. Some groups independently read the entire chapter and then come together for discussion. And I've seen groups that assign a few pages to each member of the group, and then they come together and reconstruct the chapter in little bits. I don't worry too much if the students seem to be missing points because that's something that I can address in the next phase, which is the reconstruction. Once all students have completed their chart paper, we come together as a large group. We post the chart paper containing the summaries in the classroom. You can see how that looks. And one representative from each group tells the rest of the class what the summary contains. At this point, if key points are missing, I will step in and assist the students just to make sure that the class gets an accurate depiction of the entire novel. Once we've reconstructed the novel, we move on to reflection, and we talk about how the novel relates to course concepts. We do that for the remainder of the class. I usually have structured questions ready for the class, and I encourage them to make connections to issues that we've discussed. At this point also, we manage to have a discussion about the historical context. I ask the students to guess when the novel was written. In my experience, most of them guess that it's a Bush-era novel that is talking about the War on Terror. And of course, most students are quite shocked to hear that it was written in 1939, and it underscores how these big questions of education and tensions and struggles over educational purpose and aims have endured for this many years and will continue to be issues that they face as they enter the profession. In summary, this strategy allows me to bring concepts to life through narrative fiction. Most of my students comment on how much they enjoy this activity and what a great discussion it generates. A lot of them go on to use Novel in an Hour in their own high school classrooms. I encourage you to give it a try, but I do advise you to plan carefully, and if you do, I believe you'll be successful.